Mic test 1, 2, 3. Marcos here, and today is a solo episode of the LTS podcast. So, since I'm solo, I prepared a couple things to share with the listener or viewer, wherever you're watching this. Remember, dear listener, we are on YouTube, and YouTube watchers, we have a podcast. So remember to follow us on our podcast, and podcast listeners, we have a YouTube. You can listen to wherever you want. But I appreciate if you could subscribe, follow us, give us a thumbs up, and share the podcast with other listeners. So, let's begin. For me, I've always had this in my head for a while. Batteries. Okay? Batteries. They power everything mobile nowadays. It used to be generators, crank power, horsepower, watts, voltage, resistance, amperage, the whole works. If you don't know about batteries, dear listeners, it's been around for a while, and I just wanted to give my bit here and there because I've been holding these notes for an occasion like this whenever I am solo recording. So, let's begin. In the beginning, actually, there used to be, there's archaeological evidence that they're called something the Iraq or Afghan battery, but that one was mostly confirmed to be used as a religious item. And the original, where we could draw power for the concept of battery, voltage, all those things, was by a gentleman last name Voltaire. I got his first name. I'll check it on the notes. Hold up. Future Marcos, do your magic. The unsung hero powering our modern lives. Get ready, dear listener. We're diving into the captivating history, the cutting edge present, and the electrifying possibilities of the future. A shocking origin. What is a battery? 1800s. Alessandro Volta, creator of the volt pile, revolutionizes the understanding of electricity. A lasagna of metal, if you will, and salt water that unexpectedly produced a continuous flow of electricity, paving the way for modern batteries. There you have it, dear listeners. This gentleman in the 1800s, grinding it out in the trenches, being curious. That's what I appreciate from the Italians. 1800s, pizza was already around, lasagna was already around, because that's the reference that I want to use for this analogy. Food, tech, the future. You connect the dots, dear listener. Okay, the early battery advancements. Lead-acid batteries, the workhorse powering our cars for over a century. Yes, dear listeners. The first cars that were not horse-drawn, or wagons by that matter, were battery-powered, dear listeners. Yes. So, we're basically going back from battery to horsepower to motors, mechanical, and back to batteries. Why? Because we've improved the power of batteries, and maybe we could even improve the power of motors, but it's neither here nor there. We can min-max all we want, and it's awesome. Just in a concept kind of conversation, making you think kind of style of what can be possible and what has been done and what we're living through right now. Okay, so back to the notes. Early battery advancements. Lead-acid batteries, the workhorse powering our cars for over 100 years. Nickel cadmium batteries, once ubiquitous in electronics, now largely replaced by more efficient technologies, aka motors, dear listeners. Motor power, horsepower. They even used watts, I think, for horsepower. In the US, we use horsepower, definitely. But worldwide, for the power of motors, they would use Watts. Yeah, watts. And now we're going back with batteries. With power of watts. Well, here goes with my personal story. I personally like. I'm not that much in gaming right now, but I did appreciate games. Even with my visual impairment, I found a Game Boy. And what do you think Game Boys run on? Batteries. I personally found my Game Boy, as you do, in a park. You don't buy it, you find it. Guess where I lost it? In a park. I also lost my Game Boy. That same Game Boy. So it was a full, clean, complete cycle. You find it somewhere, you return it to the community, you know? And but definitely I refilled those batteries at least once or twice. And guess what game it was? And Pokemon. Pokemon was in this Game Boy. I think it was a Game Boy Color, because I remember there were the see-through ones and the color ones. Mine was a red, I remember that. And it was a good time, a wonderful time. And then I returned it to the wild, as you do. From flashlights to Teslas, batteries today. Lithium-ion battery, the undisputed champions of portable power, enabling our smartphones, laptops, and a myriad of other devices. You already know it, dear listeners. Right now, I'm looking at my younger brother over here, having problems with his laptop. And guess what? The battery died. But that laptop's already 10 years old. Almost 10 years? I think 8 years old. But I'm rounding up. Always a round up for me. Yeah, always round up. So yeah, these batteries, obviously, they pulled their weight, and now they are doing their thing with dying out, and it is what it is. That's the cycle of whatchamacallit, of life for batteries. They live their life, and now you have to replace them. That's one of the many things that we have to consider nowadays with batteries. Once they do their purpose, where do we throw them out? Where do they recycle? I want to be held responsible and accountable for that, but at the same time, I have to properly dispose of that. Something for you to think about, dear listener. Renewable, in quotation marks, energy. Batteries play a crucial role in storing excess energy generated by solar and wind power, ensuring a stable and reliable grid. Well, yeah, where we live, there's a parking lot and there's solar panels on top. Probably a private company made a deal with the local government to give them, or the same like a power company did an installation where they can store extra power for emergencies, because right now we're going through a heat wave over here on the East Coast. And you already know that we are getting a lot of sunlight and all those things in the summer, beginning of the summer actually, as of this recording. And they are going through it, those solar panels. You already know that they're probably using it, the city, the municipality is using it right now. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, that's another way. I've seen wind turbines, but I never connected wind turbines with the use of batteries to store the excess energy, because there's a grid and there's versus solar energy that I did not expect it to be connected with batteries. But the more you know, dear listeners, I'm even learning here. Electric vehicles, electric boogaloo time, revolutionizing transportation with their clean, quiet, and efficient operations. Hey, there's been some recalls out there with some companies, but worldwide, the use of electric vehicles is very rampant. And let's see if there's enough of competition with capitalism and all those things that there can be improvement on these models, because that's how it started off in the early 1900s, late 1800s, with the power of batteries on these horseless carriages. The future. Research is pushing the boundaries of battery technology, as it should be, promising faster charging, longer range, and more sustainable materials for the batteries, obviously. And obviously, sources will be in the notes. I made sources, dear listeners, so worry not. Obviously, by the Science Daily, SciTech Daily. Now, the future is electric. Ooh, get charged up, dear listener. And sustainable. exciting possibilities. Solid state batteries. What does that mean, dear listeners? And the potential for faster charging, higher energy density, and improved safety compared to current lithium-ion batteries. So, what does that mean? Bio-based batteries, exploring sustainable materials like cellulose and lignin to reduce the environmental impact of battery production. So yeah, back in the day, like still within this podcast, you can reference it if you're, an old listener out there. You can hear that some Texas-based researchers were trying to dig into the possibility of using salt-based batteries, where if an accident happened, batteries didn't catch fire because they're infamous for that for a while, that they just break into salt once they're consumed, which is awesome, don't get me wrong. But now there's bio-based, which is ligma kind of thing. So let's go. I just make myself laugh because it's exciting for me, and the more I don't know, the more excited I get, and it's inspiring to see how people are curious to push the envelope in just batteries. Imagine everything else, dear listeners. Now let's talk about that environmental impact. Balancing the benefits of batteries with the need for responsible sourcing and recycling of materials that's going on out there in the world. How are you going to get these resources? You're not going to find this exactly where you dug coal, where you dug your lithium ion minerals and all those things. That's maybe if you're lucky, but different countries in the world are going to get more power because of this, and more power to them, metaphorically and literally, in the entire sense of the word, because they're going to be part of a new market. And that could be good or bad for different nations, but I'm here for it to see what happens, how it unfolds, dear listeners. What do you think? Do you want to see other countries like Australia? Probably right now is one of those big countries with those mines, with those high-tech items. And also Mexico. I guaranteed know that Mexico is growing out there. So let's see how it goes. Now, an optimistic outlook. Emerging technologies like iron-based cathodes and sodium-ion batteries show promise in making clean energy storage more accessible and affordable for all. Brought to you by Viz.org and Science Daily. So yeah, dear listeners, again, salt-based and new materials like iron. That's a pretty high resource around the world, I think. Especially for the US, but yeah, worldwide, dear listeners. So, with that electrically charged, thought-provoking, and maybe a little bit cringy here and there, still a solo show, so let's see how it goes, dear listener. And remember that you can always follow us, leave a comment if you're watching this, or get at me over here on X, formerly Twitter, or Instagram. I'm always active out there. I'm trying to be more. Again, you can watch the post. If you have your own personal story about batteries and all those things, how your phone has died here or there, you can post over your phone, actually, or on your computer, wherever you listen to this podcast, dear listener, okay? This is Marcos, and thank you for listening. Talk to you soon, and let's see how this goes. Marcos, out. Oh yeah, and remember to follow us, subscribe, all those things, down in the description. If you feel comfortable, go on sharing, the love to continue doing this podcast. More power to you in every sense of the word. Thank you. Have a nice day.